What is happening, guys? Cowboy here, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to actually make a PvP build in Elden Ring. Now when it comes to doing PvP, there are two main considerations you want to make in advance. The first is going to be what type of build you want to make, obviously, whether that's a dexterity build, a strength build, intelligence build, maybe some type of hybrid build. And the second is what is the main PvP activity you're looking to participate in. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that is going to be important when you consider what level you want that character to be. So for most of my characters, I tend to stick at 150. It's very much kind of a generalist level. You'll be able to still find duels, you'll be able to do invasions, you'll be able to do PvE content or expansion content if it comes. But we definitely have more comfy stats, you know. For tournaments that either streamers are hosting or are in like the Discord servers, a lot of those are at 125. For invasions, while there's not a meta level for invasions, in general, invasions are usually better at 90 or below. Just because you're finding people that are still going through the game, you're going to find more people in general, whereas trying to get invasions at like 150 and above, well, most people at that level are just doing New Game Plus kind of on their own. You're not going to find as many people doing co-op. And the reason this is important, and kind of the whole reason behind the meta levels in particular, is because of two things. One is build diversity, and the other is connectivity. Now this, a lot of people seem to miss this part, but in Elden Ring and in other Souls games, there is a built-in level connectivity range for players. And so just using a little bit of fuzzy math here, because these numbers aren't exact, but using 150 as our baseline here, I can connect to players that are 135 up to 165. Similarly, someone that was 100 would connect to like 85 up to 115. And someone that is 300 will only connect to 315 to 285. And so because of that, the community congregates towards certain levels, and those levels tend to be lower to help promote build diversity. Using my own build as an example here, I'm at 150. I would consider this to be a dexterity build. We have our dex up at the second soft cap, that's 55. I wanted to use Erdtree Great Shield, so I pumped strength up to 30. I needed to have, you know, the weight to use that great shield, so I had to get endurance up to 35, and I wanted a little bit of mine to be able to use weapon art, so I went up to 21 there. My intelligence, my faith, and my arcane are all very, very low. Vigor is, of course, at the soft cap. Now, this is still very much a dex build, but it's a lot comfier than a lower level dex build. I mean, after all, I have 30 points into strength to use what's typically considered a strength shield, and I have enough endurance to use some very heavy armor and enough mine that I'm not just left with base. But going beyond this, this build would no longer be a dex build. This would begin to become an everyman. And that's kind of the problem with going super high. You know, if I go all the way up to 209, well, God, with another 50 levels, I would take my dex all the way up to 80, which is hitting the soft cap. I could take my endurance up to about 45, we're the heaviest armor in the game. And I'd probably pump a bunch into faith and also pick up all the different various buffs that I could put on my character just to ramp up my damage even more. And so that's why the community tends to stick to lower levels in games like this and Dark Souls 3 and, you know, all the Souls games. Is because when you go too high, your build begins to lose its identity and it begins to become just an everyman, which for PvE content, that's fine. But in PvP, it gets kind of boring if every single fight is the dude wearing the same armor, using the same weapons. You know, if every single person you're fighting becomes a bull goat, then PvP isn't going to be as fun. And once you start getting into the 200s and the 300s, you do see that more often, simply because you have so much endurance, it just makes sense to wear that heavier armor. But for the sake of this video, we are going to be making a 125 duelist build. So I want to make a dexterity character. I'm going to go to the 125 level so that I could participate in tournaments, stuff like that. And I'm going to make him a dexterity character. So the first thing I want to do is test out a bunch of different weapons. And to test all this out, I'm typically going to do this on what's known as a mule character. Now on PC, there are mule character saves you can just download and basically put it into your own save file. On console, I'd suggest turning your very first character you beat the game with into a mule. You typically go through New Game Plus, make sure you have all the weapons, all the spells, and then that becomes your mule. And your mule is basically a testing character that you can use to prototype different stuff. So just looking at my chest, I mean, I have all the spells, I have all the different weapons, everything is leveled up to max, which I know you can't do that on console. But I mean, you could level stuff up, drop it to somebody, they give it back to you, etc., etc. The point being that I have all these different things that I can test out and get a feel for what I want to use when I actually make a new build. So I want to do thrusting weapons, so we've already gone ahead and put on a couple. I have double thrusting swords, double heavy thrusting, and then the double spears. So just looking at the moveset to start with the thrusting swords, because I'm power stancing, I also want to look at my R1 and my L1s. So the R1 on the thrusting swords, obviously just a little bit of forward momentum. The run has a nice little poke to chase people down. I like how fast the L1s are. Seems like I can be very aggressive with that, especially the startup. Just doing that startup, we're getting quite a few hits in. You can see the running attack is a very fast one too. I can see the rolling is going to be a fast one too as well. Jumping attacks. So you have like a slash into a double stab, okay. I go heavy, I do a downward thrust stab, okay. And right now, this step, you're literally just testing out the moveset. You want to get a feel for that moveset and see, is this something I like? Is this something I feel I could comfortably fight with? So we're looking at, you know, the power stance, the normals, backstep attacks, rolling attacks, running attacks, jumping attacks, and you want to test all that stuff out. So by comparison, using the heavy thrusting, you know, these are a lot slower, and I'm not as much of a fan of them. But I may still go through, test a bunch of stuff out. If I was using the spears, well, the spears seem good, but they also seem pretty, you know, pretty vanilla. It's just poke, poke, poke. They do got that good running attack. The rolling attack kind of aims up a little bit, which I'm not as big of a fan of. But for the sake of this build, let's say that we just want to use the thrusting swords. Now you would do this with both melee builds as well as magic builds. On magic builds, you want to test out different spells, see what combos into each other. You know, Comet hits pretty hard but has a longer cast, but at the same time, you can chain cast it out of Swift Glintstone Pebble. So you can go Glintstone Pebble, Comet, and the Comet will come out really fast. But that is what this purpose of the mule is we're just testing different things out and kind of getting a feel for what we want to actually have on our build. Now moving on from there, let's say I've decided I want to use thrusting swords on the build. We are going to look at a couple of different thrusting swords. Now, you can obviously look at the damage, and I can see that the lightning on Rogier's is going to put it ahead at 511. This is going to be 458, and this is going to be 434. I know this is actually less than this if I make it keen, but it's lightning for now. We'll get into that in a little bit. But that doesn't tell the whole story. We also want to look at the length of our weapon. So we're going to line this weapon up right there with the edge of that pillar. See it right there in the bottom right corner. Let's see, this one is going to be longer. And I can see this one is also going to be longer, but just by a little bit. Let's say between these two, which is going to be longer. I already know which is longer, but I'm just showing you how I test. So at the top of the idle animation, it's just barely hitting the brick. I can see this goes from hitting the brick to past the brick. So based on that, the clean rot is going to be the longest sword, and it does weigh more, 4 compared to 3.5 and 3.5, but this is going to be the longest sword, so it's the one that I'm going to want to use. Now, obviously we can do lightning as opposed to keen when we're doing dexterity. This is B dexterity, this is C dexterity. And on paper, it would seem, oh, well, the lightning rapier is going to hit harder. That's 511 compared to 458. You know, that's pretty significant. That's over 50 extra damage that you're getting with lightning. But that doesn't actually tell the whole story, because we're not considering that it's split damage and not pure damage. So this is something that's easier to show rather than talk about. But using the clean rot, I need him to be aware of me when I hit him. So 396, 396, 402. Let's get another one, just to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. 402. Come on, do something. So right there, that is a damage difference of 6. 402 compared to 396. And this would lead you to believe that there's a damage difference of, what is that, 53? And that's the point I want to make, is, well, On paper, the lightning weapon does seem like it's going to be better, and technically it is in this case, because this is considered pure damage and this is considered split damage. We're not seeing the whole picture here, because when you see your raw armament's attack power, that is not taking resistances into consideration. So if I was fighting anything that had good lightning resist, instantly this is going to fall off and the pure weapon is going to then be stronger. So just something to keep in mind when you're deciding what you want for the affinities of your weapon. But for the sake of proceeding this along, let's just say we put on these two for now, because we're going to go double thrusting swords. Some other things I like, I'm a big fan of using the miser cord after a parry, so I'm going to put that on. And because I want to parry, I'm going to put on a small shield. I just happen to be a fan of Spiral Horn, but you can use whatever you want. Besides that, some other things that I like to have as a backup on something like this. You know, whips are nice if I'm trying to catch people out of the roll. The malicious shodel, this is actually going to be really good because it can slip through an enemy's guard, so I can use that to break past the guard of enemies that are trying to great shield or trying to block. I could even keep a Hand of Millennia in my back pocket if I wanted to use that, or something like the Lightning Nagakiba. Obviously this is going to need 18 strength, and this is going to need 16 strength, and this is going to need 14, but that's what we're about to get to. So now that I have an idea of what weapons I want, we know that the weight threshold I'm aiming for is going to be 8, because I want 2 clean rot swords, so that's a 4, and this is at 3.5. So for the time being, we're just going to put on this, which is at 8, just to give us the weight that we want. So we have that on, we have this on, we have this on. Now I need to decide on my armor, and I need to decide on my talismans. Now before I start deciding on my armor, one of the things I like to do is look at Poise Breakpoints and consider what it is that I am trying to beat in a fight. Now I'm going to have this both pinned in the comment section as well as in the description of the video, but these are the Poise Breakpoints for Elden Ring. And you don't need every build to be a bull goat. Like, sure, the bull goat has defense and a ton of poise, but you might not need all that poise. And if you don't need it, there's other places we could put those stats to get more health, more damage, more FP, etc. So looking at this, the leftmost column we see the attack, and then as we continue along to the other columns, we see the categories of weapons. So for example, looking at fast category 2 over here, I can see that straight swords, curved swords, katana, spears, axes, and twin blades. If I want to poise through the one-handed R1, I need 51 poise. If I want to poise through the one-handed running R2, I would need 101 poise. And I can use this to get an idea of what breakpoint I want to hit. So I want to be able to outtrade all these fast weapons, and even halberds. The halberd, the running pokes on the halberd, those tend to get me a lot, so I want to be able to outtrade those. So the one-handed running R1 on the halberds, that is 93. That is going to be the magical number for me. I'm going to aim to hit a Poise Breakpoint of 93 to stop that. So going back into the game, now I need to decide on what armor I want to wear to hit that 93 breakpoint. Now I know already that a full bull goat set is exactly 100 poise. So unless I want to be a bull goat character, I'm definitely going to need to put on the bull goat's talisman at the very least, just to boost my poise up. So let's toss that on. And I actually don't mind the bull goat legs. Bull goat legs have a very nice chunk of poise for leg armor, so we'll throw those on as a start. Now moving on from there up to the gloves. Actually, let's pick a chest first, and then we'll match off of the chest. So I don't think I've done Beast Champion Altered, so we'll just put that on. Now based on this, we are currently at 89 poise. I'm gonna get a lot of poise out of this. But first off, this does not match at all. We need to change that helm out. I don't really like that helm. Don't really like the veterans that much, though the veterans is at 93. I don't know. I don't really like how that looks. Don't like how that looks. Now that looks good. We'll go with that guy. That looks good. So I'm at 88 to match up our gloves. 89, 93, 93. So I definitely don't want to wear those. Those won't match at all. These will, however. So putting those on, our fashion looks pretty good. We are at the 93 poise breakpoint that I want. And the next thing we're going to do is calculate the base stats that I need. So Keeping all of this in mind, once again, we're going to go on over to another thing that I will have pinned in the comments. And this is going to be a build calculator. Now this is really useful because you're going to be able to fill this out with the different stuff that you're wearing, which I've already done. Royal Knight's Helm, Beast Champion, Fire Prelate, Bull Goat, Great Jars, Millicent's, Bull Goat, Spirit Talisman. I actually haven't put those on. Let me put those on real fast. So this is heavier. Great Jars Arsenal makes sense. I'm going to be poking, so obviously the Spirit Talisman. And then the last one, I like Millicent's here because I'm going to be poking fast and it gives me more dex. So I have my talismans, I have my armor, and I have weapons and a weapon equivalent to the weight of my other weapons. Going over into the build calculator with all that stuff on, we can now move endurance up, and right when we get to 30, you can see it changes over to a medium load over here. That is the breakpoint. So now that we know that, a couple other things. To use this one-handed, I would need 14 strength. I'm probably going to two-hand it, so that's not as important to me, but being able to one-hand it could be useful. So let's make 14 strength our target point. Vigor, I'm going to want at 60. I know I'm going to need 30 endurance, and then I don't need any intelligence, faith, or arcane. So going on over here, we're then going to use the build optimizer. And I'm going to go 60 to vigor, nothing in mind, 30 in endurance, 14 in strength. Dex is going to be our main thing, so we'll put like 50 in there for now. And then 0, 0, 0. And I can see that the best choice is going to be a vagabond based on these stats. Looking at this, I know that if I want to raise my mind up more, I believe samurai might pull ahead. No, it won't. Okay. So samurai and vagabond become equal as that goes up. But if I wanted less strength, samurai with the lower base starting strength now becomes the better class. But for the sake of this, we are going to go on up. And like I said, we're going to go 125. So there we go. 60 vigor, 10 mind, 30 endurance, 14 strength, and 65 dexterity. Now, when it comes to filling out your stats, that is where this guy comes in. And this is the soft cap cheat sheet. Now, a couple breakpoints here. Vigor has 2 breakpoints at 40 and 60. 40 is going to be 1,450 health. 60 is going to be 1,900 health. I always like to go to 60. If I can hit 60, I'm hitting it because things do a lot of damage in Elden Ring, and I want vigor. Mind, I'm usually going to have enough to comfortably cast. I'm not going to worry about the 55-60. Endurance is, as we already calculated, you want to get enough endurance for that medium load. You're almost never going to be like, oh, I think I need more endurance to fight. We get a lot of stamina in this game. The most important thing is going to be the medium load. Strength and dex, the different soft caps are 20, 55, and 80. As you saw, this build at the start was 55. But I'm going to be taking that up nice and high. I'm going to leave my strength down at 14. And then if I was doing int, faith, or arcane, those are 20, 50, 80. And then for sorceries, it's 60, 80, and incantations, 60, 80, and then 30, 45 on arcane. But so once again, this is all going to be pinned in the comment section. So going back on over into Elden Ring, I now know what stats I want to use. I now know what armor I want to use, and we're ready to hop on over and actually create this build. So hopping on over, here we are on the final product. This is Sir Stabbington. You're at 125 with 60 vigor, 10 mind, 30 endurance, 14 strength, 70 dex, 9 int, 9 faith, and 7 arcane with a vagabond starting class. Now the reason we are at 70 dex, of course, is because this is actually boosting us up by 5, but this would be the finished build. Now at this point, now is when I'm going to worry about Ashes of War and testing different things out. In particular, I already know what I want to use, but Ashes of War, I mean, you can swap them out on command. You don't need to know exactly what you're using. In particular, I like Glintstone Pebble as a quick follow-up, as well as Thunderbolt for when people are ranging me. Over here on the Militia Shoulder, I like Ice Spear, just because that absolutely dunks all over Great Shields. And then on the Arumi, I like Beast Roar. You know, I use this to catch people that are rolling. Beast Roar is a good follow-up on that. So either way, we're going to do some fights. Hopefully they go fast. If they don't, I'll just cut out all the in-betweens. But yeah, let's do some fights, show the build, and see how it goes. For the flask effects are going to depend on the build. Crimson Bubble Tear is a pretty safe bet. And then Green Burst is always a good one, just because stamina speed, can't go wrong with that.
Hey!
Dude, really wanted to get those pokes. Watch out for that colossal. Too slow. Oh god, the spin on that. You baited him. Game of spacing. Oh. Game froze up a little bit, but Thunderbolt secured the kill. Oh, snap. My man wants a rematch. Too fast. Grandma. Man, I don't want to have to beat up Grandma. Alright, now Grandma has a parry shield, so this might actually be... This is the threat. Am I about to get parried into oblivion? We are about to find out. Gotta be aggressive while she's two-handing it. Ooh, it was the wrong time to parry, Grandma. Can I get her with the art? Ooh. Get back in your old folks' home. See, the thing with a buckler is when I see the buckler, I assume the parry's gonna happen. Alright, this dude is a katana mage.
Hey!
Waiting for him to cast, hit him with the lightning bolt. Oh no, I'm dead. Ah, I got greedy. GG. Should have poked him when I had the chance. Instead, I knew he had the glintstone pebble, and I kept playing with fire, and it got me killed. But you can't win them all. So on that note, we're going to wrap up. Now, obviously, even now, the build doesn't necessarily have to be done. You can try out different weapons. I didn't even get to fight anybody with the shield to use that thing. I didn't have to chase anybody down with the Irumi. I mean, typically my setups are more like built for like lots of different situations, which is usually the case with invasions. But this gives you an idea. You know, we figured out what we wanted to do, which was a duelist dex build. We targeted some armor. We figured out our stats. We punched that into the calculator, and we put it together. And it's a pretty distinct build. Very much looks like a knight duelist instead of some unnamed 209 Havel monster. But either way, we are going to wrap things up here. So for more build ideas, I have an entire playlist full of them that should be linked to this video. All of the resources we used, as I mentioned, those are going to be in both the description and the comment section. Otherwise, I'm out. Go out, make some builds, have some fun.